everybody, and welcome to Read and Succeed. Today we are here with one more book of Nellie Nutgraf, the double best reporter in history. Breaking News, book number 5, part 2 of 3. Written by Tom Angleberger and illustrated by Gillian Reid. So without any further ado, let us begin. Chapter number 4. General George Washington jumped on his horse and started riding for the river. Nellie ran alongside them, asking questions and taking notes with one hand and snapping pictures with the other. "Don't take my picture yet," cried the father of our country. "Let me put on my hat first." "Put your dentures in too," said the horse. Click. Nellie got a photo of George Washington riding a horse and putting in his dentures. "Oh man, Prince Franklin's gonna make fun of me if you print that." "Here, let me take one," said George Washington. He grabbed the camera from Nellie, pointed at himself, and invented the selfie. But the picture turned out so well that it's now printed on the $1 bill. George Washington handed the camera back to Nellie, who was still running alongside him, and his horse. Luckily, it was Pretty's slow horse. When they got to the river, a rowboat filled with soldiers was waiting for them. Washington jumped off the horse into the boat. Then Nellie jumped into the boat and the horse jumped into the boat. "Twinkle-hoof, I didn't know you were coming too," said George Washington to his horse. "I want to be in the painting too," said the horse. "Okay," said Washington, "start rowing, men." The soldiers started rowing, and George Washington started standing majestically in the prow of the boat. "How do you spell pro?" Nellie asked. "P-R-O-W, said Twinkle-hoof. I think we are sinking," said George Washington. "Are we sinking, guys?" "Yes," said the rowing soldiers. "There's too much weight in the boat. The reporter will have to throw her typewriter overboard." "You don't mind, do you?" George Washington asked Nellie. "General Washington, this isn't just a typewriter," replied Nellie, also standing majestically in the prow. "It's a symbol of America's freedoms. The freedom to say, to write, to print, to think anything we want. This typewriter is what you and your men are fighting for." "Well, maybe you could throw part of it overboard," said George Washington. "Like just a few keys, because if we drown in the river, we won't be able to fight from your typewriter." Nellie looked at the water trickling over the sides of the boat. She knew he was right. She decided she could spare a couple of keys she didn't use very much. She zipped out the Z key and threw it in the water. "Still sinking," said the soldiers. She tossed out the Q and the J. "Still sinking," said the soldiers. She dumped the P and the W. "That's better. One more should do it," said the rowing soldiers. "I guess I don't use K very much," she thought. Before she could do anything, George Washington yanked out one of the letters and threw it into the river. "What was that letter?" gasped Nellie. "Just the E," said George Washington. "No!" shouted Nellie. "E is the most frequently used letter in the English language," explained Twinkle-hoof. "Gee, I never even use it myself," said George Washington. "You just use it 9 times in that sentence," replied Nellie. "Egad!" he exclaimed. "We've stopped singing," said the soldiers, "and we've made it across the river." George Washington started to step out the boat. "Wait!" shouted an artist on the shore. "Could you row back out in the middle again? I'm not done painting you yet." "Sure," said George Washington, and the soldiers rowed back out and waited while the artist finished the painting. Nellie used the time to try and type up a story about it. George Washington crossed the Lar. General George Washington and his frontiersmen have quickly crossed the Lar River to attack British troops in Haladia. "This is an outrage," she shouted. "No one will be able to read this." So readers, as we can see that Nellie Nutgraf had met George Washington and she went on with a boat ride with him. However, there were so many people on the boat that the boat was sinking. So George Washington came with an idea. He asked Nellie to throw some of her keys from her typewriter into the river. And maybe the boat wouldn't sink. So she threw one of the less frequently used keys that she used in her sentences and her reports. However, when it was the last key's time, then George Washington yanked out one of the keys and threw it in the river. And what was the key? It was the key E. And E is one of the most frequently used letters in Nellie's reports. And now when E is removed, she was not able to write anything properly. Now if I read this, you would not understand what is written on this. That's correct. And that's why Nellie was very aggressive. No one will be able to read this. I can read it, said George Washington. Say, what's the part about attacking British troops? Isn't it where you're going to Philadelphia? No, we're going to Philadelphia to get Philly cheesesteak, said George Washington as the boat landed and everyone got out. You know the thin slices of meat covered like a cheese-like glue? We attacked the British a few weeks ago, said Twinklehoove. Didn't you read it in the news? It's already been in the news, gasped Nellie. Yeah, said the horse. That nice fella, Hotshot Troublesky, wrote it. A huge front page story about it. Nellie balled up a story, threw it on the ground and stomped it. Beat it with a stick and kicked it 187 feet into a handy recycling bin. By this time, George Washington and his horse were miles away. But they could still hear her yelling, "This is an outrage!" Chapter 5. Nellie stopped yelling and looked at her watch. It was already 11 o'clock, and she had written was a hard-to-read story about what the father of her country was going to have for lunch. That might be good enough for the food page, but it would never make it to the front page. She needed a huge story, and to make matters worse, she couldn't write any story until she got her typewriter fixed. Just then she heard a crazy clattering and cracking coming from the other side of the hill. She peered over and saw a guy pushing a wheelbarrow full of typewriters down the road. "Hey, little lady," the man sang, "ain't it a bit of yeet full today?" "I guess," said Nellie. "Listen, mister, you can call me Johnny," said man sang. "Johnny Appleseed." "Johnny Appleseed? What are you doing with all of these typewriters?" "I plant them everywhere I go. My dream is to see typewriter trees going all across this whole BUT. "Hold on a second. I thought you went around planting apple seeds," said Nellie. "Oh, a lot of people make that mistake because my name," said Johnny Appleseed. "But why would I go around planting apple seeds? Apples don't grow from seeds." "Yes, they do," said Nellie. "No, they don't," said Johnny Appleseed. "Well, yes, they do." "No, yes. No, yes. No, yes. No, yes." "Well, we'll just have to agree to disagree," said Johnny Appleseed. "I'd better get moving along. I've got a lot more typewriters to plant tonight." "Wait," begged Nellie. "Please, can I trade this typewriter that's missing a few keys for yours?" "No one can do," said Johnny Appleseed. "I need all of these to fulfill my dream of beautiful of land." "This is an outrage!" shouted Nellie, and the boy howdy, she really meant it. "If you feel that strongly about it," said Johnny Appleseed, "let's take the typewriter tree and see if there are any riper ones." Nellie watched as Johnny Appleseed climbed up a nearby tree as fast as the lightning. A second later, he plucked a brand new typewriter from a branch. "Here you go, little lady," he said, polishing the typewriter on his sleeve before handing it to her. "Wow, thanks," said Nellie. "Let me test it out by typing up the interview with you for the big city, big news." Johnny Appleseed considers career change. "I'm tired of people being confused by my name," said Johnny Appleseed, "so I will no longer plant typewriters." When asked what he would plant instead, Appleseed thought for a minute. "I want to plant something that's fit better with my name," he said. "So I think I'll plant Johnny's." When asked if he meant toilets, Appleseed said, "Yeah, you know, Johnny, I'll travel this land installing a Johnny here and a Johnny there. And pretty soon we'll have a beautiful country full of Johnnies. Definitely not a front page story. But Nellie figured out it would do for a home improvement page. May I take your picture? She asked. Sure, just let me put on my hat. Click. She got her photo, then Johnny Appleseed walked off one way and she walked off the other way, still looking for the huge front page story she needed. So children, we just read about Nellie Nutgraf. She met with this person named Johnny Appleseed. Now Johnny Appleseed meant it was a very weird name. People thought that he would plant apple seeds into different places. However, he used to plant typewriters. He thought of a beautiful land. Now, when he said beautiful, he used to say it as B-U-T-ful. So that's like Johnny Appleseed was a person who used to plant typewriters. And he gave one ripe typewriter to Nellie. And she wrote Johnny Appleseed's interview with that. So Nellie was trying to find out a very huge story for big city, big news to put on the front page. Let's see what she finds ahead. She got a photo, then Johnny Appleseed walked off one way and she walked off the other way. Still looking for that huge front page story she needed. At least she now had a working typewriter. After a while, she arrived in a small town and noticed the Wright brothers bicycle shop. Hey! Have you guys invented the airplane yet? She yelled through the window. No, said Wilbur. Check back next week, said Orville. Nellie kept walking. She passed a computer lab. Hey, is that computer working yet? She yelled through the window. No, said Grace Hooper. There's a bug in it. Check back next week, said the bug. Nellie kept walking and walking and walking. Finally, she passed a surveyor's office. Hey, Benjamin Banneker, she yelled through the window. Have you finished making your wooden clock yet? Said Benjamin Banneker, who was busy working on the map of Washington, D.C. Well, what time is it? Asked Nellie. Banneker glanced up at the clock. It's 4:30. This is an outrage, yelled Nellie. I'm running out of time to get a front page story. I refuse to get stuck in the underwear section. Extra and extra. So everybody, this is the end of part 2 of 3. Nellie Nutgraf. So stay tuned with me to see part 3 of 3 Baking News. Does Nellie get stuck in the underwear section? Okay everybody, bye. Have a nice day.